afternoon, everyone. I believe everyone here already used an eraser to erase a pencil mark. Yeah, but what happens? It happens that your table is a little bit dirt, and then you clean it, and this rubber goes to the trash, which eventually goes to the environment, and then it is absorbed in the environment. We lost the control of it. But when we talk about tires, and we talk about what happens with these particles, so we decided to investigate a little bit deeper the Hubble wear phenomena using hyperspectral cameras, hyperspectral imaging systems. And this is my work of today. My name is Anderson. I'm a PhD student in University of Prussia, and today I will present the technique that myself and the team of Laboratory of Materials in University of Prussia are developing there, which is monitoring rubber wear using hyperspectral imaging systems. So the motivation is this, that I introduced it because considering those particles, they go to the environment. So rubber particles could be fragments, could be microparticles, and the problem that they are easily absorbed in the environment. There are a lot of categories between them. PM10 is one of the most common one, but the problem is that they bind all the other particles in the environment, and they get mixed very fast. So it is absorbed in the environment very easily. For example, in the case of tires, it goes to the road, it goes to airborne, and then it is absorbed in the environment such as soils, lakes, rivers. And then animals in those environments absorb those particles, and those animals which are basically our menu. So in the end, we ingest them. And this is a serious problem. But despite this fact, there are not literature saying that this could be fatal to us, but we can have respiratory problems, cell damage, inflammation, and so on. So it could be nice to improve rubber components. And the objective of this work is to add a degree of information to the rubber wear problem. In this case, the spectrum. Because using spectroscopy, we can observe the spectra of materials, but most of the spectroscopy techniques analyze a point. Now we are using hyperspectral imaging, which puts an image, and the spectra of this image, the entire spatial area. So we have a picture which actually is a 3D picture. And this is important because when we analyze rubbers have a very particular behavior which changes frequency, time, and temperature. When we submit rubber to a wear phenomena, wear events, it changes topography, its texture, morphology, chemical condition. So when we apply hyperspectral camera, it maps this. The picture can map a land, can map a component, and then we apply it to rubber components, we map the surface, the contact area. So this variation in chemical condition and texture is captured by the HIS system, not only in a spatial way, but also in a spectrum. It is a technique that we can use without destroying the specimen, at least if it is not already destroyed. Because in my case, I registered fresh samples and worn samples. So this provides topological and chemical information without destroying the sample. This is very useful for example, production lines. It is already used in rubber manufacturing, such as in couplings, to observe the degree of aging of the rubber in the very early stages. Okay, this is the objective. A new technique to monitor rubber components. And how we do this? We have three basic activities, which is the material acquisition and characterization, And then we submit this material to the hyperspectral imaging system, then move it to the friction tests, which were made by hand and also by a trigonometer. And then we submitted those samples again to the hyperspectral camera. So we have samples, discs, about 20 discs of 100 millimeters, and the cylinders, about 12 of 24 millimeter diameter. Both are natural rubber based and water jetted. They were initially plates and water jetted in this format, in those shapes. And then we did a lot of tests, mechanical ones, chemical ones, and this is the configuration of our rubber, sulfur vulcanized natural rubber with 16% carbon black and 45% of silica and calcium-based minerals. Actually, our rubber is rather weak. It is a commercial rubber, and the structure is not so uniform, and this results in a rubber compound that emits a lot of particles, which is useful for us, at least in this first stage of this development. But in the end, this is our compound that we submitted to the hyperspectral system in Milan, in a research center, which is this frame, aluminum frame, with a hyperspectral camera over here. And then we have UV lights. We have the movable table. Why? Because this component will go below the camera, be photographed, and returned. Why? Because this camera is a push broom one. Push broom cameras register the sample when the sample are moving through it, registering stripes of this image, and in the end, mount all those stripes forming the image. An image with a spectral range of 3 to 5 microns. And this is the main information here, and also the exposure time, which we use to tune the system during the measurement, but we use more or less 1.5. And then here, 3 to 4 microns is the range that we use to obtain our information. So this is the test configuration, and this is my sample here, being prepared to be photographed. And then it goes to below the camera, it is registered, it returns, and then we have the picture. This is the picture. But it is not alone, because it is this, the spatial, the X and Y, and then the spectral one. So it's a hypercube. We call this hypercube. So we have the spatial and the wavelength. So we have thousands of pictures, at least. And then we submit this to our routine in MATLAB, and this picture, which was initially at megabytes of data, became a picture of gigabytes. So, because here we did the processes, so we define the labels of our samples in order to identify the samples which were photographed. We color threshold them, gave him shades of black and white. So the photo is colored, and then it becomes black and white, because we are extracting the spectrum. And then we have an algorithm just to capture the spectrum, which is based on the information that came with the file, which are the reference, white and black of the camera, and then the proper picture. So in the end, the algorithm also performs segregation of data, which is based on this image, to have a test data and the trained data. The trained data is trained with a KNN algorithm, and then will be used to identify the test data. So we decided to move to 2 images, usually the same, but photographed in different moments. Image A, image B. Both of them have test data A and trained data A, trained data B, test data B. But our test will be test data A with trained data A, and test data A with trained data B. Basically, trained data will try to identify in the test data the conditions of our samples. Which conditions? And previously, in the end, we produce a prediction map and a confusion map. Confusion matrix. Confusion matrix basically states the percentage of pixels that were correctly identified by the algorithm. And the prediction map basically shows it graphically. Okay, so how we do that? We took the cylinders, divided in 4 groups: rough, smooth, which were worn with different sandpapers, original, and aged. Rough and smooth because we have to prove that it can identify different surfaces. Original and aged, it's a bit deeper because we identified in our experiments when characterizing the material that our rubber has an interesting oil layer over its surface. And this is very common in rubber compounds because sometimes we use oils to give a more tackiness to the rubber. This is very common in Formula tires, for example, which we use to improve the adhesion mechanism for more grip. And then we observed that when we aged at 90 degrees, we removed this oil. So let's try to challenge the system with this configuration. We observed this here with this peak, an original, without the oil here after aging. And also the oil layer was hiding the fillers of this that we saw in the beginning, the 45%. Okay, so we decided to take those test configurations to challenge the system in surface conditions and chemical conditions. This is me doing the test in Milan, a very complex test, manual, in this case, the cylinders. We put the cylinders here in the table, and this is the moment in which are being photographed. This is the image. This is the labeling processes in which I input the characteristics of each test condition. From here, we took the fresh and aged at 90 degrees. Why? Because they are the extremes conditions. And we took the P35 and P600 worn-based samples because they are the extreme conditions. Okay, so here, rough and smooth. This is the prediction using the same picture. Test data A, trainer data A. Nice, it is expected to see because it's the same picture, the same data set. But when you use a different data set, there is a little bit misprediction here. We lost almost 40% of pixels wrongly identified. And here, 25% wrongly identified. But the matrix conserved the diagonal. And this is important when we are observing the confusion matrix, that we have a diagonal very clear, at least with the higher values of prediction. So in the end, it was not so bad. But it is an alert. It is the same samples, just a different file. It should be almost not 90% of prediction. But okay, let's try to see with the aged one, test, and trainer data A, basically even higher, okay, expected. But when we change the picture, also higher, it is a good result. So we see that the camera is maybe a little bit better when identifying chemical variations. Okay, let's try to see our tribometer, which is a distal disc tribometer used to test steel wheels from trains. So we applied 1,000 newtons in one of those samples. We won 250, and then we submitted to the hyperspectral camera again, the hyperspectral imaging, and the sampling process. Okay, the labeling process. And then we have, the objective is always with those tests, friction tests, is to produce different surfaces and also generate variations in the surface conditions. Because friction-induced thermal impacts on the rubber, which changes conditions. So we also want to challenge the system. So here we have very different tests. The only common parameters, the 5 millimeters per second sliding velocity, and then we produce very different surfaces. The rough one, 50 microns of RA, roughness average. And the smooth one, 21 microns of RA. So very different surfaces. Then sample labeling, okay. Test data A, trained data A, nice. It was expected, it's the same trained data, okay. But when we changed the test data, the result was also good. This is quite a nice result because we are considering circular samples. And then when the light rays goes to the samples, they scatter higher. But this is a good result. But we have limitations, as we saw, because you know, it should be 90% in all of cases, at least higher. Why? These are the principal component analysis of our rubbers. Here, everyone together, everybody together. Here, only aged. Here, only the samples submitted to board conditions. The ideal is to see clouds, one cloud here, one cloud here, one cloud here. And then we can say spectrally different, but they are spectrally closer. And this is our limitation because the algorithms had trouble when we put all those specimens together. The algorithm had trouble to identify them, even though it identified clearly, as we saw. When we put everybody together, there was difficult to identify it. It identifies some characteristics, but in the end, the result is better when we have small samples, smaller quantity of different samples. So the spectral differences are very small. So we have to tune this algorithm, we have to analyze more the sensitivity of the system and also of the camera to capture this difference, because this does not justify that. We have to identify it in any case. So maybe just a light variation during pictures, because a shadow, a light variation, the air around the samples can change the spectra of the picture, and even though we have the same picture at different moments, can result in a situation like this because they already are very similar. Conclusion. Okay, this is a pretty new approach from us, and we can see here that there is a promising results because it really identified two different samples, a fresh and aged one. Worn with a smooth surface and a worn sample with a rough surface. This is nice. But there are something in a gray area, which is the sensitivity of the system and the algorithm that had difficult to identify the samples, mainly when I have a lot of different test configurations together. And we have future work. At least this month I'm trying to prepare all those data for publications. Nice, it's underway, I hope. And then we have September to December, I'm going to Brazil to produce new grind discs based on the asphalt of Italy. I bring the information, I bring this information to Brazil, to my colleagues in Brazil that have a very nice laboratory to build those grindstones, which are made from asphalt. And we are trying to get this to return in January of next year to do another battery of tests with new material, new load variation, and new surface roughness. And then we also challenge these results here with a new material. And this is my work. Thank you for your attention.